All right, so I'm very pleased today to say that we have Allison Schiberg with Consolidated Planning Group joining us and presenting on planning for special needs. And as you know, so Allison is a parent herself, so she kind of understands what it is, first of all, to be a parent, and second of all, have a child with various medical and special needs challenges, as we all do as parents. But Allison has spent more than 20 years in the insurance and financial services industry. She's the owner and managing partner of Consolidated Planning Group, and she operates the agency right here in Sugar Land, Texas. Allison and her team are focused on helping their clients reach their financial goals and objectives through comprehensive planning afforded by both insurance products and investment vehicles. So please help me welcome Allison. You just put it around your neck. Yep.
All right. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for braving the yucky weather coming in. I'm glad you're here. So I think I would maybe kind of share just a little bit more about myself and my story, kind of how I got here and why I'm really passionate about special needs. So my story started a long time ago, long before kids or marriage or anything like that. I was working in insurance and financial services, and I was working with a company that was the second largest sponsor for the Children's Miracle Network. And so each year we were very, very involved with special needs and very, very much involved with the Children's Miracle Network and their champions across America. And it was kind of a humbling experience for me. I was really young, and each year as I participated with this, I don't know, it was just kind of this, just this heart for special needs. Because what I realized every year is I went to these events and I saw these families with major struggles, and they were still smiling, and they were still they just lived life and they just get through it, and so they weren't taking things for granted. And so oftentimes people take things for granted, and the people that really have things to complain about weren't. And so it was just really, really humbling for me. And that experience, it just changed me, and it grew my heart for special needs just at a very, very young age. I guess accidentally, like it was just kind of incidentally that I was there. And so, so then fast forward, so I've always done insurance and financial services, and I've always been a huge proponent of planning and planning early and taking the steps that you need to take to be successful. But then, so the previous experience really just prepared me for the life that was ahead of me. So I'm a mom to four. I have, and they range from 15 to 30. And the two youngest have had significant challenges, ranging all across the board, from significant medical challenges to the the typical learning challenges, ADHD, dyslexia, all of the alphabet soup, and processing speed delays, etc. So we've kind of been all across the board there. But what I would say is, so early on, I took the steps that I needed to take to be successful. I had no idea what my life, what was lined up. None of us do. But those steps that I took early on are why we're okay. Not just okay, we're good. So when the ifs in life happen to us, that's why we're good. And so I take that and I kind of look back at the past and kind of where I've been and where we're going and moving forward. And it's just that message that I want to share. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be here with you today. This presentation is really just designed to kind of talk about some of the issues that we all face and some of the things that you guys need to be aware of. Some of the things you may already know. I hope to be able to share some items and some give you some understanding about things that maybe you don't already know. So anyway, again, I'm glad you're here, and we will just go ahead and get started. So again, today, planning objectives, planning options, and where life insurance fits in. We're going to talk about government benefits, able accounts, etc. And we're just going to kind of go through those. We'll go deeper on each of those topics, and then I would like to say, honestly, if you guys have questions along the way, I say ask. You don't have to wait till the end, so by all means. Okay, So the need, I mean, we're gonna just look here, 25% of US households have a member with special needs, 12.6 of those of the US population have a disability, and 34.9% of those were employed. Okay, so we were talking about some of the employment issues that we face. This is some of this right here, identifying special needs. We all know that when it comes to special needs, it could be a disability. I think society thinks of a wheelchair, and we all know that that special needs encompasses a wide variety of disabilities, and very oftentimes those are ones that you might not be able to see right off the bat. So. Okay. So the unique needs, there's a lot of things when it comes to special needs that it's different than typical, okay? So medical care, special education, we were talking about that earlier, equipment, home modifications, mental, physical, occupational, speech therapies, and then of course the transition. The buzzword I think is transition care, where we're transitioning from childhood to adulthood and those services. So, really, ultimately, we want, it's not just the child, we want the child and the families to be comfortable, and we want them to have the confidence that they should have in their plan of what's next. So we know, kids and aging out of the public school system at age 22, and we often have families that come to us, and because it sneaks up on you, it's kind of, you've been doing this all this time, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm just realizing that this is really coming to an end, and I'm not really sure where we're going or how we're going to do it or who's paying for this, or there's just a lot of questions. Okay, so when it comes to planning for special needs, it really encompasses a team approach, and I would probably suggest just hearing, and just in the few minutes this morning, you guys have, it sounds like you guys have your tribe. You have a tribe. I'm hearing names and different groups that you're in, or people that you know. But so it's everything. It's from your medical care team. It's from the financial planning team. It's the legal aspects of things. All of that comes together, and it is really, really important that you have your team in place. So the team can associate the cost associated with a specific disability. So we get that question a lot of, how much is this going to cost? What is the future care? If my husband and I are trying to plan financially, if we're not here anymore, how do we calculate that? So we have the ability to have, to calculate future care costs. The availability of public benefits and funding for lifetime care. Both of those are challenging questions, and anytime we're dealing with public benefits, it is very, very confusing, and once you think you've got it, you don't. it changes. Okay, so it's important to work with an experienced attorney to establish a special needs trust. I stress that a lot. You really want to focus with one that is specialized with special needs, because all attorneys aren't created equally. There are things that they're better at than others, and so you definitely don't want a generalist. Some of the best special needs attorneys that we've worked with actually have a special needs child themselves. So it's not just that they're crafting something for you, they've had to do it themselves. They have a child that's aged out, etc. National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, that is a database. Of course, we have referrals for attorneys in the area that we know are great. So we pass that along. So when you're trying to find an attorney, if you already have a trust, if some of the ages that I heard of kids in the room, we're at a point where guardianship may come into play, which can happen 6 months before their 18th birthday. But just trying to find out what experience do they have with special needs, what experience do they have with trust, because again, all attorneys aren't great at trust either. There's a lot of law that goes with the trust to make them effective. And how long have they been practicing, okay? All right, common mistakes that we see is failing to plan, placing money in an UTMA account, assuming other family members will care for the disabled person. And that is not, I've heard so many schools of thought on that, but it's not even assuming. It's like you might even have just a really loving family member that says, I want to do this, especially these siblings, okay? And we really caution people on that, because just like all of us, when you were young and just starting out, you had a vision for your life and your goals, and whether that looked like getting married or having a house or just a career, whatever that was. A lot of times, even though the family member loves the special needs family member and they want to help, oftentimes that's not at the expense of their dream. And they say yes anyway. So it's easier to let people fulfill their dreams and have another plan, okay? And then creating a trust for a person with a disability that fails to qualify for a special needs trust. Those are issues that we see as well. Okay, so when it comes to planning objectives, we talk about creating a lifetime care plan. Who knows what a letter of intent is? Okay, silence. So this is, I kind of like to call it a love letter to your family. This is what you do because you do this every day. You're in the trenches. You know what the medicines are. You know who's doing the therapy. You know who the doctors are. This is our daily routine. These are the things that you definitely do not want to do with this child. Everything will fall apart if you do. This is if you're not here, if you have the inability to communicate these things, this is something where somebody could pick up this document, whether it's electronic or paper, and it has a list of all of the medications, it has a list of all of the allergies, it has a list of all of the issues. It's something that would be pretty time consuming for you guys to put together, and it needs to be updated as conditions change and things like that, but it's just something that's important, and it's important for people to know where that document lives, or you share it with somebody else that would be in charge if something happened to you, okay? And then of course appoint a guardian or an advocate, and sometimes so nowadays we're hearing about guardianship, we're hearing about supported decision making. There's all kinds of ways along the way that you can do that. There can be even joint, or successor guardianships, things like that. So these are all things that definitely come up, and especially if you have a child that is approaching age 18, if it's not on your radar, it needs to be on your radar on that kind of little checklist. Okay. Maintain eligibility for government benefits. Even if the individual isn't currently receiving benefits, eligibility may be desired for future use. So we have a lot of our families, most of our families, their kids don't qualify for benefits prior to age 18. They make too much money. Okay, so they don't think about it. And surprisingly, a lot of people, once the child turns 18, really don't even know that they should apply for benefits. Okay, because even though the child may still live in your house, probably still does live in your house, it's based off of their income at the time that they turn 18, not yours. So wait, oh yeah, they have none, or very little income. So then with their disability, once they apply and it gets approved, then they qualify for $771 a month plus Medicaid. Your primary insurance will be primary for health insurance, and Medicaid would be secondary. Okay.
All children will qualify when they're 18 for.
Based off of their disability. So if they are disabled at age 18, it is based off of their income at that time. So if they are disabled, then they should qualify.
Is autism a disability in that?
Yes. So and there is a guide, and we'll go deeper about this, but there is a guide for the disabilities through on the Social Security website and what qualifies. And one of the things that I would say is good advice, because I went through this with my daughter. She's 19 now, so we did this at 18. It is laborious. It's painful. You should expect it will take 6 months before you get your check. You can go to Andy Hardwick's presentation, and he'll go deeper with you.
This Saturday.
He's really good, and that would be worth your time to hear him. He's fantastic. But it takes time. But the more you have your ducks in a row, proof of diagnosis with diagnostic codes, names, addresses, phone numbers of the doctors and everything. When you get your appointment, you have all that together. It's going to make the process a lot smoother. You sign disclosures, they go out and get records, but any records that you can provide on the front end will make it a little bit easier. And you can set your appointments. Appointments at the Stancliffe office are usually behind. So if you know your child is turning 18 in August, you could probably call in April, maybe a little bit later, maybe May or June, and schedule an appointment for August. And you can actually do it the month that they're turning 18. So if they turn 18 August 29th, anytime during the month of August, you can go in there, that's okay. Okay? But call early because they're always behind, and if you call in August, it'll be 3 or 4 months before you get in there. Okay. Okay, so, and then of course we know $771 a month. Nobody's getting rich off of $771 a month. It's just a basic level of existence. Okay, so then we want to, when we're looking at planning, we want to talk about covering additional costs of care beyond what is provided through government programs, out-of-pocket costs. There's so many things. I mean, again, $771 a month. So there's so many things that would need to be covered. And then you guys can use a special needs trust. Does everybody know why they might need a special needs trust? Okay, so and I've heard things all across the board, but basically the bottom line is when you start getting your Social Security benefits to $771 a month, you can't have more than $2,000 in your name. Okay, you can have a car, you can have a primary residence, but you can't have more than $2,000 in your name. And if you do, then they take your benefits away. Okay, so clearly, it's gonna, the existence of a special needs person is going to take more than $2,000. So we're going to be saving for these things and funding a trust and things like that. But money in the special needs trust cannot be used against them for their Social Security. So this is where, and we'll talk more. I'm going to change this slide. This is where it's important that well-meaning family members, grandparents, everybody that loves your child doesn't give them money directly. Okay, so you really do not want money in your child's name directly. Money for your child should be in a trust or an ABLE account or things like that, so that way it keeps them benefit eligible. Okay, it's super, super important. Okay, cost of care, it says $212,000 to $454,000 cost of raising a child into adulthood. They say that cost is 4 times for a special needs child. And just like quick math is about 1.2, I think that, what is that, 40 grand a year, 30 years? $1.2 million. So if you have a child that may need care for the rest of your life, and we're just saying that you're going to basically cover their care needs while you're alive, you have been all this time, and then when you're gone, that number on a low end is about $1.2 million, and that sounds crazy because all of us, we could spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. So if you're married, that's 2 people, 25 to 35 years in retirement. You gotta live, and then wait, I need to supply 30 more years, so that it starts getting daunting. But what a lot of people don't understand, if this is the first conversation that you're hearing or talking about special needs trust, is oftentimes the special needs trust is not because everybody was independently wealthy and they just threw $5 million in the special needs trust. Most people's special needs trust are oftentimes funded with life insurance. So I pay for my child's care while I'm alive, in my working years, in my retirement assets, I pay for my child's care. And then upon my death, my life insurance funds this trust. Okay, so that's a basic way of how that happens. So costs don't end in adulthood, and it depends on your disability. I mean, we see a lot of families with children with autism. We have them from low functioning to high functioning, and all across the board. So it truly depends on the disability, and whether or not your child will be completely independent, never independent, somewhere in between. It definitely depends. Okay, so how much will the beneficiary need in the future? So again, this is like the future care planning cost calculator that we do. And we basically, we kind of talked about this calculation. The 1.2 million is kind of a starting point. If you have a definitive facility, if you're thinking of a facility later, a day hab or any type of residential care, then those numbers go up, and we can calculate that real quick, knowing what those what the tuition or the price to be there is. Okay, we'll go ahead. Okay, so options to pay for care: Social Security and Medicaid, SSDI and Medicare, tax favored savings vehicles, ABLE accounts. Anybody familiar with the ABLE accounts? Okay, we will talk a little bit more about the ABLE accounts in just a minute. And then, of course, self-funding, private insurance, out-of-pocket, life insurance, and the special needs trust. Okay, so, and we kind of hit on this a little bit ago on the Social Security benefits and Medicaid are the two most common public benefit programs for persons with disabilities. Eligibility for SSI and Medicaid are determined by a means test, and it goes back to the $2,000 in their name. And income over a modest amount, generally $1,000 a month, will disqualify for them. I think it's $800. It just depends. It's in that range. So Social Security disability insurance and Medicare are not affected by a person's assets. So this is where you think yes. So the SSDI, I want to talk about that for a moment because it is confusing. So SSDI disability, right? And we have disabled children, so it just only makes sense that they would qualify for SSDI, but that's not right. They qualify for SSI when they turn 18 based off of their assets. But your child could be dual eligible, so they could be eligible for SSDI as well if they're disabled and they have a disabled parent that was disabled by Social Security standards prior to the child turning 22. Okay, so they could be eligible for SSDI as well. So SSDI is based off of 40 quarters. So children that turn 18 don't have 40 quarters. So that's why they don't qualify for SSDI. If you are in the category where one or both of the parents has already been disabled by Social Security, then when you apply for benefits, when you call to make that appointment, you need to say that you need to apply for SSI and SSDI under the adult disabled child provision, okay? So that is where the child will go right under the parent's record. And the cool thing is even though your child doesn't have 40 quarters, once that's approved, they're approved under that adult disabled child record forever. So even if that person, the father or the mother passes away, their approval, they're in under that. It's really cool. Okay, so kind of hit on that. The benefits will vary, and then of course there's offsets and things like that. They'll kind of get into the details. Okay, after you've been approved for Social Security disability, so you got 2 years. So after 2 years, then you qualify for Medicare. Okay, so Medicaid is needs-based. There's a lot of confusion with all these words that we throw around: SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, Medicare. But Medicaid is needs-based, so that's financial based, and Medicare is for disabled. And so once you've been approved by Social Security disability for 2 years, after the 2-year part, then your Medicare kicks in. Okay, so age 65, blind or disabled for Medicare. Medicare is not quite as comprehensive as Medicaid. Medicaid tends to cover a lot more. Routine hospital services are usually not covered. Not all primary medical care is covered. And it says it may require a private Medigap policy to fill the holes, but as the world is right now, the Medicare supplement plans are great for 65 and older. But the Medicare supplement plans that are available to people under 65 are expensive and not good. We have them, but the benefits that they offer, it's just really not, they're really not giving you anything. You're paying a premium for something, for benefits that you actually can't get prior to turning 65. So that is a little bit of an issue. Okay, so modest monthly cash for SSI, about $771 a month for the max benefit. That number is offset if you're working. Okay, so if a person is working, that is offset. If they're getting SSDI, they can work up to a certain amount without a reduction. Okay, so Medicaid, comprehensive health insurance, attendant services, dental coverage, day rehab programs, group homes, Medicaid. So again, for the families that haven't qualified and haven't had any SSI or any of these benefits all along, your child may be eligible, will be eligible once they get the SSI and the Medicaid for services that you had to out of pocket before or may have not been covered before. So it's really important to work with your advocate on that. Okay, so what's not covered, there's of course a lot of things that aren't covered. Living accommodations, home modifications, just medications, education, personal items, all of the niceties of life. All right, niceties, I don't know, necessities, some of them, you know, those are the basic things. The basic things that you're paying for right now are, you know, they're not going to be covered. Okay, so public benefits during life stages before age 18. We've talked about this. It's based off of your income and assets, not the child. And most of the time, that just disqualifies them for that. So if, as a parent, you have more than $2,000 in assets in your name, then your kid doesn't qualify. Okay, so it's easy. Most people don't. At age 22, we see that special education ends, and we have already talked about that you do want to apply when they're turning 18 for the benefits. Some people don't know, and you definitely want to do it before age 22 because then there's all kinds of rules that kind of mess things up after age 22. And so I always say to talk to your friends. People know people like themselves that have disabled family members and things like that. So if you learn this piece of information, pass it along, because I think when it comes to Social Security and Social Security disability, it's kind of one of the biggest, most confusing programs out there. Okay, so after age 22, public benefits may be inadequate. Private or trust funds may be necessary. So again, that's where we come into the special needs trust. Okay, 529 ABLE accounts. So we have a lot of, I want to say first that we have a lot of people that we come across that they have a 529 account for college for their child because they didn't know established or whatever that the child had disabilities, or maybe the child would or would not go to college, you know, who knows. But those 529 accounts are convertible to the ABLE accounts. So if you have a 529 account that was originally for college, they are convertible. There is options for you to convert them to an ABLE account. So, okay, so how this works, the beneficiary is the account owner. Income earned in the account is not taxable, okay? Contributions are not deductible. It does not jeopardize Social Security or Medicaid or any of their social benefits. And of course, there's distribution limits. We're going to talk about that on the next page. Okay, so participants, disabled individuals whose disability started before age 26, that's when you can have it. Anyone can make a contribution, and it can be $15,000 annually. Not to be in excess of $100,000. So the account can only have up to $100,000. So there's no limits on the amount that you can have in a special needs trust, but up to $100,000 for an ABLE account, you can only have one. You can't just keep having multiple ABLE accounts. Okay, so in my example, we have a special needs trust. We have an ABLE account. Out of the special needs trust, you cannot pay for housing out of the special needs trust, but you can pay for housing out of the ABLE account. Okay, so there's like all these little ifs and buts of what you can pay for. You can pretty much pay for everything out of the special needs trust except for housing, because if you're getting $771 a month from Social Security, then they expect you're paying that for housing. So ABLE accounts have less restrictions on what you can use the money for. Okay. Go ahead. Yes?
In the beginning you mentioned that if you have a 529 which you opened earlier and you can transfer it to now an ABLE account, let's say if you were to do that, still it can be used for paying expenses other than education or because it was a transfer, you know?
So yes, so there's a long laundry list of, it's really, let me just repeat that question. So she was asking what expenses could be paid for out of an ABLE account. If you were transferring the money from a 529 account for college to an ABLE account, what could be paid out of that ABLE account? And it is pretty all-encompassing, even vacations, like, you know, it's pretty all-encompassing of what can be paid out of the ABLE account for a person with disabilities for special needs. Whereas the 529 account is pretty much to pay for college, and if you don't use that for college, you have a couple of options. Of A, you can change the beneficiary. So if you have another child that will go to college, you can change the beneficiary in the 529 college account to that child. Or B, if you take the money out and you don't use it for education, then you're taxed and penalized. Is essentially how that works. But those monies, the 529 monies, I just would like to mention is sometimes people are always thinking about college. They can be used for other education. So there are definitely 529 monies that you can be using for private schools and other things like that, and accessing resources. Some people need private school. Some people are being very, very well served in the public schools with their, 504s and IEPs and, etc. So, but there are options to use that for private school as well. Okay, so we talked about the penalties, the growth, and then the rollover to the other family members. So one thing that I would say, so I like these ABLE accounts. I have one. But one thing that I don't love about the code with the ABLE account is that, so let's say it's only $100,000. So I say it's only $100,000, okay? So, but if you don't use that money, so if you don't need that money in the ABLE account, then what happens? Can I just transfer it to another beneficiary? So I mentioned that on the 529 for college, you can just transfer it to whoever you want. You could transfer it to your grandson, another sibling. You could transfer it to yourself. I mean, you could transfer it to anybody, but when it comes to the ABLE account, you can transfer it to another disabled child in your house, another disabled family member in your household. So we do have a lot of clients that have multiple family members with multiple disabilities, but we also have a lot of clients that have one family member with disabilities. So in the example that I don't lose the money, then I'm going to be taxed and penalized to take it out. So that's the question. But again, I would go back to it's $100,000. The average care for a person with special needs over a 30-year period is $1.2 million. So the chances of not using the money are kind of on the slim side. So you can argue that. Okay, types of special needs trust. The first party, the self-settled trust, how it works. The special needs person transfers assets to the special needs trust. Assets are not counted for Medicaid and SSI purposes, requires Medicaid payback at death. Any excess funds can pass to another beneficiary. So sometimes this gets a little bit confusing of like, what do you mean the child would create this trust in their name? So this is actually the type of trust that my daughter has at this time. And so this is where the child gets the settlement. Okay, the child gets a settlement, the child gets money directly into their name. So not every child falls into that category. Not everybody's getting a trust fund from, something that happened, either an accident or a death of a family member or something along those lines. But in our example is my daughter and her scholarship. She got a scholarship, and the scholarship monies were coming in into her name. So the overage of the scholarship was designed to pay for housing and food and everything like that, but they would give it to her directly so she could pay for housing and food. And so it went into a first party special needs trust. So that, because had it gone to her directly into her direct checking account, then she would have lost her benefits. So because it was more than the $2,000, okay? So the two types of first party trust, the individual 4A trust and the pool trust. Go ahead. Okay, so the first party trust, this is just kind of a path for how it works. So again, it's funded by the disabled individual, not the family member per se, it's their money. So they transfer the money, it goes into the trust, and then money comes out for distributions of care. So in our example, so I said about the special needs trust and the ABLE account, so we move money from the special needs trust to the ABLE account. So if she wants to pay for housing or things like that, she can pay for that out of the ABLE account, and that doesn't mess her up for benefits. And then she maintains her government eligibility, but should something happen to her, there is a repayment. So we give and we take away. When it comes to these benefits, and we talk about a payback, upon her death, the special needs trust that she has, there's a payback through Social Security. Okay, so they look and see what money. So the goal is not don't have money left over in the trust. That's the goal. Okay, so spend your money. Yes, question?
So you're saying that if the disabled child passes away, whatever money is left over in the special needs trust will go to Medicaid. But you also said that they can have a primary residence. Would those be liquidated and used for payment to Medicaid, or just this?
I believe it's just the trust assets, and that would be a question I should go deeper. So the question is on the payback to the needs trust, would they take their and I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that there is a look back, and it doesn't say that they're going to take the whole amount. They're going to look at the amount of benefits that were paid to the individual, and there's a whole formula or whatever, and then there's a percentage back that would be taken from the trust. Yes.
We have a question from online too.
Okay.
So the question is, can a 529 plan be used to pay for a person who already graduated from high school, but to pursue a job training program provided by a private transition center? So it sounds like another type of educational program.
That, I'm sorry to say that I don't know. So typically, for all of the, we talk about vocational programs at the community college, we've got university, we've got private, and all of those things. So yes, likely so, because it also can pay for private school. So without knowing specifically, what the school is, but if it's tuition for private school, then it's able to. But it's definitely, I would go a little bit deeper on that. Definitely the universities and community colleges is for sure.
But in this case, if you had an ABLE account, that would cover, because you said that they are a little less. So when you say like every time you have to request a withdrawal from the ABLE, you have to submit paperwork or proof to get a withdrawal? Or?
So the ABLE account withdrawals, it depends on which account that you have. As far as the ABLE account, Texas has introduced the ABLE account here over the last couple of years. There are the Ohio Stable account, great one, and then there's another ABLE account with Fidelity that's pretty fantastic. So those are the two that we recommend. Texas ABLE account, that the way the other ones work are a little bit more favorable, and I think Texas being new to the game of the ABLE account, I think they'll work out their kinks. But the one with Fidelity and the Ohio Stable account are the ones that are good. So there's a process, and the process is different for both the Ohio Stable and the Fidelity account. But it's relatively easy, and it's linked to your checking account and direct deposit. I mean, there's all kinds of, and you can direct pay right out of the ABLE account if you need to. With you get it, you get it.
Like you don't have to open in the state of residence.
No, no, that is for sure. And did we have any other questions?
Oh, she just went. So it says, what if it's not a certified school? Let's say it is a transition program provided by a BC. So now it's sounding like true 529 plan might to be used for a BCBA might not.
A therapy school or other things like that. I think that would have to go. I think you'd have to go deeper on that. But I would say that a good place to start would be to talk to Fidelity. Okay. And we can help with that offline. I mean, we can help with that. But talk to Fidelity and ask them to go deeper, because they have a definitive list of yes, this is qualified, yes, versus not. So I would definitely, I hate to say yes on that.
Right.
I think it's questionable, and I think that would be something that we would need to ask a very specific question.
Might skirt the edge and might want to convert that traditional 529 to a true ABLE account, so it might be qualified to use that.
Yeah, yes, that may be the case. It may be the case, and I think it just depends. I mean, so it should be covered by the ABLE account, but if it's only in a 529, I think it just depends on how the school is set up. Okay, we're going to move on to the third-party special needs trust. Most people see more third-party special needs trust than they do first-party special needs trust. This is where a third party transfers assets into the trust. Okay, assets are not counted for Medicaid and SSI purposes. There's no Medicaid payback at death. And so like a supplemental needs trust. Okay, so here's the path there. We've got the grantors, mom and dad, annual gifts. So this is when people are gifting your child. This is, as opposed to going directly into the child's name, this can go into the third party special needs trust, distribution for care, and you maintain the eligibility for government benefits, and then there's no payback. Yay! We like no payback. So, okay, so it allows a person with disabilities to have the assets for their future care without interfering with the benefits, and they can be established by parents via terms of a will or a living trust. So I've heard people say, well, I don't need a special needs trust. I don't have enough money. Like they have this in their mind, like, well, we have this trust, but it's not funded. It's funded with $1. We kind of hear those things. But so another way about it, so like if you're thinking, like if you're in a position that your life insurance or life insurance that you will get will fund your trust, it is easy to have a will with a testamentary special needs trust instead of actually having a special needs trust right now with its own tax ID. You can have a testamentary special needs trust that funds upon your death. Okay, so that way the life insurance proceeds are not going to go directly to the child's name. It will go to the trust upon your death, but again, you're paying for those care needs while you are alive. So it can be funded with gifts of cash, assets, stocks, personal property, real estate, life insurance, etc. And of course, we were kind of talking about some of those special rules for distributions, which I could get into. I could get into the weeds on that all day long, so it's probably better kind of more on a one-on-one basis for that. Okay, so the importance of life insurance. It's purchased on the caregiver's life. It replaces the value of services provided previously, and what I say is we're grandparents. We do these things out of love for our family. We do them for free. A lot of special needs parents, one of them is not working because some of just the profoundness of the needs that are there, it makes it difficult, the appointments and all of the things that would drag a person away from work. It can provide liquidity to equalize estate among siblings. So as I mentioned, a lot of these families only have one special needs family member. They may have 3 other kids that don't have special needs. And it's kind of just trying to figure out how are we going to do this, and we want to be fair. Okay? Supplemental government benefits over a lifetime. Death benefit is immediately available and avoids probate. That is super, super important. And access to cash value during lifetime. And also the proceeds of life insurance are not taxable. Okay? So, special needs trust ownership, rather than the individual named as the owner or beneficiary of a policy. So I usually probably spend way too much time on this, and I've mentioned it a couple times, well-meaning family members, parents, grandparents, siblings, etc. How many times have somebody said, well, I left it all to Johnny? Okay, that's an example. So at no point, whether you have a special needs child or not, it's a bad idea to have your child, your minor child, listed as a beneficiary on your life insurance, your 401k, or any other thing, okay? And the reason why is because if you die prior to the child turning 18, that money sits in trust until they turn 18. And then they give them all of it, which is a bad idea, okay? So no 18-year-old, even your brilliant 18-year-old, it's not a good idea to get huge sums of money at that point. So that's the reason why we don't ever list any minor child, and of course the reason that we don't list a special needs child or a child with disabilities is because then they come into this money, they turn 18, they qualify for SSI, then they get this money, and then they're done. They don't qualify for that anymore, okay? For transfers to a special needs gifting program to minimize transfer taxes. So when we go with life insurance to a special needs trust, so we've got the grantors or mom and dad, annual gifts to the trust, the distribution for care, the premiums paid for the policy on the life of the grantors, and at death, the proceeds go to the trust. And again, the trust is for the benefit of the individual with disabilities. They maintain their eligibility for benefits, and there's no payback. Okay. So personal ownership. We kind of talked about the tax free death benefit. Caregiver's own policy on his or her life names a special needs trust beneficiary. So again, it could be the testamentary special needs trust or the special needs trust. Life insurance death benefit cash value may receive creditor protection, so that's another fact, and living benefits of life insurance available to the caregiver. So there are riders nowadays, there are a lot of policies for life insurance out there that have long-term care included in them. So instead of having a separate standalone long-term care policy, you can use up to 50% of your death benefit while you're alive for long-term care. So it's kind of built in. Waiver premium for disability and flexible paid-up riders. Flexible paid-up riders are a way that you can put cash into the policy. It's usually guaranteed at about 4%, usually paying about 5.25. So it's guaranteed. It's not in the market, so you don't lose money. But money when it comes to, if you have kids that don't have disability, money in life insurance, cash values, the flexible paid-up rider cash values, money in annuities, and money in 401k and IRAs don't count against you when it comes to FAFSA and applying for college. So when you have other children that might be applying for college, there is a such thing as having the money in the right buckets, okay, that will help you. Okay, so and this is just, I say this is just common sense, but as parents, we get so tied up in the day-to-day and caring for everybody else that we sometimes put ourselves on the back burner, and so the caregiver concerns are real when it comes to taking care of yourself. You're taking care of everybody else, you wear all these hats, but we put ourselves on the back burner. 53% said that their own health had worsened due to caregiving and that their declined health affected their ability to provide care. So that is something that is truly important. And 55% of caregivers are unaware of how to establish a lifetime financial plan for their special needs dependent. And this is where I would say, this is where my passion comes in, is I just really believe that people need to take the steps that they need to take to plan. And you don't have to be a millionaire to get started. When you're planning for special needs, a professional will sit down with you and really talk to you about the planning that you've done so far. Do a lot of listening. They should do a lot of listening about what's important to you. What is your vision for the future? How is it that you think your child will function in adulthood? With you? Will they always live with you? Do you want to part-time live with you? Is there residential care? There's so many little things, and everybody's family is different. But we really do a lot of listening, and your advisor should do a lot of listening about what's important. And then what they can do is really help you determine, here's where you are, here's where you want to go, here's the steps you've already taken, and here are the next steps that you should take. And it really doesn't matter on what you haven't done so far. I hear that all the time when people say, oh gosh, I'd be embarrassed to tell you what we haven't done. Or I would be embarrassed to, we were doing good, we were trucking along for a long time, and then life got complicated and we put it on the shelf and we haven't looked at it in a while. And so what I would say is, I don't care. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you've been. It's about where you're going and moving forward. So if you've done a lot of planning, what I say for that is it's time for a financial checkup, okay? So just like we take our kids to the doctor, you go to the doctor, we get a checkup. When it comes to your plan, and especially if you've got a child that's going to need care for the rest of their life, you need a checkup. You need a financial checkup that's really going to look at the planning that you've done and just look at those little things to make sure that there's nothing slipping through the cracks, like an accidental named beneficiary, or we actually see all kinds of stuff where beneficiaries were never changed, like someone passed away or divorced, or any number of scenarios. We've seen it all, but it just, those type of things. So ultimately, I guess what I would say is, really look at where you've been, where you're going, and what your vision is, and and see if your plan is just on track for where you want to go. Okay. I would just like to open it up for any questions, and our office is in Sugar Land. We do serve clients all across the U.S. We do video conference and other things like that with clients as well. I'm horrible at marketing. So we will send out an email today, so you guys will have our email, and in that email there'll be a link. So if you're interested in having an individual consultation to kind of discuss your specific situation, we'd be happy to sit down with you. You can just click the link, and you can schedule right there. We do phone appointments, we do face-to-face appointments, whatever works for people. Most of our families have children with special needs, so we get that sometimes it's challenging. If you get services and you've got all kinds of nursing care or other things like that going on, it's not as challenging, but sometimes it is challenging to get to our office, so we definitely work with you that way. Any questions?
Yeah, but I already had a lot of really great questions.
Yeah, they were really good, for sure.
Thank you so much, Allison.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you so much.